All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of year again. We're hitting the NFL playoffs. I will make my playoff predictions, and I will also explain why this is Patrick Mahomes' NFL, and the rest of the teams are just living in it. Let's get started. So starting off with the playoffs, I want to talk about this text I was sent from my good friend Michael. It basically showed the amount of experience that each NFL quarterback had going into the playoffs. Sam Darnold, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, all have 0 wins in the playoffs. All of them are 0-0 in their win-loss column in the playoffs, except for Herbert, who is 0-1. Moving on to the quarterbacks with 1 win heading into the playoffs, you have Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud. Jordan Love has a 1-1 record. C.J. Stroud has a 1-1 record. Moving on to the 2-win quarterbacks, you have Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield. Each of them have 2 wins in the playoffs. Hurts is 2-3. Lamar Jackson is 2-4. Mayfield is 2-2. Moving on to Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, they both have 4 wins in the playoffs. Jared Goff is 4-4. Matthew Stafford is 4-4. Stafford does have 1 Super Bowl victory. Josh Allen has 5 wins in the playoffs with a 5-5 record. As the starting quarterback for the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, no Super Bowls. Russell Wilson has a 9-7 record in the playoffs with 1 Super Bowl victory. And then Patrick Mahomes leads the way by a long shot with a 15-3 record in the playoffs, 15 wins, 3 Super Bowl victories. Going back before this season started and before last season started, I asked you a question. And that question is, who in the NFL can stand up to the Chiefs? Who has the pedigree? Last year, when the Chiefs went into the playoffs, Mahomes had 11 wins in the playoffs with 2 Super Bowls. The field, the rest of the quarterbacks starting in those playoffs, total of 21 wins in the playoffs, no Super Bowls. The past 3 years or so, there has been no real contender in the playoffs for Patrick Mahomes. It happened in 2022, happened in 2023, and I will explain to you again why it's happened, maybe to not as much of a level it did in the past 2 seasons, but it's once again happening in 2024. I went back, starting back in 2011, and looked at all of the years Brady. Tom Brady was tearing it up in the playoffs with the Patriots and the Buccaneers, and looked at who he had to go up against and what was the field like for him. So the lowest number of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks that Tom Brady saw in the playoff field was in 2012 when there were only 2. In 2012, Joe Flacco went on to win his first Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens. But all throughout Tom Brady's career, usually there were 3 or 4 Super Bowls that have been won by quarterbacks on opposing teams. With Mahomes the last 3 seasons, in 2022, there was 1 quarterback with 1 Super Bowl who was in the playoffs. In 2023, there were none. In 2024, there's 2. And that would be Stafford and Russell Wilson. This field of quarterbacks that Mahomes is seeing, I do not see anyone in this group who has the pedigree that Mahomes and the Chiefs do. They just don't have it. And that is why you will see my prediction go the way that it goes. So, right now, this is Mahomes' NFL. All the other teams are just living in it. And Mahomes' dominance in the playoffs puts him in a very unique position where the Chiefs could, and I believe they will, run this 3-peat. I think they're going to do it, and I'll explain my playoff predictions in just a second. However, I want to talk about the last 8 Super Bowls. The last 8 Super Bowls, 6 of them have been won by either Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. The other 2 that were not, one of them was won by Nick Foles. The other one was won by Matt Stafford. So the Nick Foles Super Bowl, that is a Super Bowl that falls under the any given Sunday category. Going into that game, no one thought the Eagles were going to win that Super Bowl. And they actually played incredibly well in the Super Bowl. Nick Foles made play after play, and they ended up winning that Super Bowl. The Matt Stafford Super Bowl, neither Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes played in that Super Bowl. It was between Joe Burrow and the Rams. And the Rams with Matt Stafford and a lot of good coaching and some pretty good defense on that day wound up winning that Super Bowl. But what am I telling you? 6 of the last 8 Super Bowls have been won by Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. And that is an important number because both Mahomes and Brady enjoyed a surplus of experience in the playoffs as compared to their peers. And Mahomes is enjoying a surplus more so than Brady ever did throughout his career. So Brady had some pretty decent competition to go up against. He had the Manning brothers, always causing him problems. There was Drew Brees at the time. Several other quarterbacks played during Tom Brady's tenure who were pretty dang good, had a lot of experience, had won some Super Bowls. Not so much with Mahomes. I mean, we can sit here and talk about how awesome Josh Allen is, how awesome Lamar Jackson is, how awesome some of these rookie quarterbacks have been, especially Daniels, in Washington. I thought he's looked great. But until they actually do something in the playoffs, I don't consider them as legit contenders to knock Mahomes off. At least not to do so without an any given Sunday type football game. So they're going to need to pull something out of their hat. The field is going to need to pull something out of their hat to stop Mahomes this year. That's where I stand, and I don't think it's going to be a typical, the Chiefs get their butt kicked game as they lose in the playoffs. It's going to be something crazy happens. The ball just doesn't bounce their way. Something unusual, some wild play if they don't win. But I do think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. And here are my playoff predictions. So, Kansas City and Detroit both get that first week bye. That's really going to help them. Teams that get the first week bye are more likely to make the Super Bowl than teams that do not. And that explanation is very simple. I mean, you don't have to play one playoff game where you are going up against a good team and could potentially lose. So the first matchup I want to talk about is Denver at Buffalo. And I told you a week ago that I felt Denver is a pretty good team. And they have Bo Nix and Sean Payton. And I think that's a good duo. I think that's a good head coach quarterback duo. I think this team is going to cause problems for the Chiefs for years to come. They also have a very good defense. But they're going into Buffalo. And Buffalo, I think, just is too much. It's too much for the Broncos to handle. I do, however, think there's a chance that Denver wins this game. However, I'm picking Buffalo. I'm picking Buffalo to win this game, and they will move on to the divisional round. Then we have Pittsburgh at Baltimore. For Pittsburgh versus Baltimore, this one I have no doubts about. I believe Baltimore is going to win this game, and I think they're going to win in a big way. Pittsburgh has kind of fallen off the radar at the end of the season. I don't think they're going to be able to compete with Baltimore in this game. Baltimore is going to win. Even though Lamar Jackson has had problems in the playoffs, he does have a 2-4 record in the playoffs. I think he improves his record to 3-4. I just don't see it for the Steelers. Love their coach. Russell Wilson has done a lot of good things this year, but just not feeling it for Pittsburgh. Chargers at Houston. I think this is a bad matchup for Houston. I think the Chargers will win this game. The Chargers' defense is very good. They will move on to the divisional round. Heading to the NFC side of things, you have Green Bay at Philadelphia. I think this is going to be a closer game than a lot of people are suspecting. I think Green Bay loses this football game in a close battle. Philadelphia scrapes scrapes out a win, goes on in the next round. We have Washington at Tampa Bay. I do not have a lot of faith in Tampa Bay. I like Baker Mayfield. I think he's had a great year, but I like Jaden Daniels even more. I think that he can do some things that Mayfield can't, and I think Washington has a surprising victory and wins in Tampa Bay. Minnesota versus the Rams. This is a tough one for me. The Rams are at home. I really wanted to pick the Rams, but there's just something about Minnesota that I can't deny. They finished the year 14-3. That's a really good record for a team. They've looked very sound through much of the year, other than their last matchup versus the Lions. So I'm taking Minnesota to win this game, and they will also move on to the divisional round. So divisional round, staying on the NFC side, we have Minnesota at Detroit. I believe Detroit wins this game. We have Washington at Philadelphia. I believe Philadelphia wins this game. Moving on, we have the Chargers at Kansas City on the AFC side. And the Chargers, while it is hard to beat the same opponent 3 times in 1 year, I believe that the Chiefs' defense is just a problem for the Chargers' offense schematically. They have an offense that wants to rely on the run game. They do not have a lot of weapons at wide receiver. Herbert is good, yes, but they know how to stop him. I think this is going to be a win for the Chiefs. They will move on to the AFC Championship game. Then we have Baltimore at Buffalo, and this is where I get a little bit wild because I am not picking Buffalo to win this game. I'm picking Baltimore to win this game. Lamar Jackson will improve his record in the playoffs to 4-4, and I think that the story that will come out of this game of Baltimore at Buffalo is that Derrick Henry was just too much for the Bills' defense to stop. Moving on to the AFC Championship game, Baltimore at Kansas City. Once again, I think this is a bad matchup, offense versus defense, for the Ravens. I think the Chiefs' defense will do a good job. They held Baltimore to 10 points last season in the AFC Championship game. I think Baltimore has a struggle again on offense. Chiefs beat Baltimore, go to the Super Bowl. Then we have Philadelphia at Detroit, and I like Philadelphia in this game. As much as I'm not a big fan of Nick Sirianni, I still think that the injuries for the Lions will have reached a head at this point in time in the season, the AFC Championship game, and they won't make it. However, I would love to see a Lions-Chiefs Super Bowl. That would be a very exciting Super Bowl. I would love to see Spagnuolo versus that offense, but I don't think that's how it's going to be. I think it's going to be Philadelphia versus Kansas City in the Super Bowl. And in the Super Bowl, in a blaze of glory, Andy Reid versus his old team completes the three-peat in an awesome game, and it's just a dose of karma for Andy Reid, in my opinion, who has done the right thing even when it was difficult all throughout his NFL career. His former players love him. Coaches that used to work for him love him. They're willing to come back. He has been a teacher of the game. He has not withheld information from his understudies. He has one of the largest coaching trees in NFL history. So if anyone deserves to win a three-peat, it's Coach Reid. And I think it's going to happen versus his former team, and it's going to be glorious. Now's your time down in the comments to let me know. Do you also agree with me that this competition for Mahomes is just not there? There's not enough good quarterbacks with experience in the playoffs in the field with good teams and head coaches to take on Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. That's what I'm thinking, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I said the last 2 years. That's what I'm saying this year again. In addition to that, I want to repeat myself because I've said this so many times. No head coach and quarterback pairing have won a Super Bowl together after they did not win a Super Bowl in their first 5 years together. So that would be Buffalo. That would be Baltimore. The two biggest contenders for the Chiefs in the playoffs fall under that criteria. I don't know what the mechanism behind that. I think intuitively it might be that, hey, they just don't have it. They don't got it together. They're figured out in the playoffs. They don't have what it takes. And that can get in the back of their minds and fester and cause problems. So you start second guessing things. Maybe you take a conservative decision, or you don't repeat a decision that you would have made every other time because it didn't work once, when you really should continue to make that decision. Look at Marty Schottenheimer. Great regular season head coach. Couldn't do it in the playoffs. And it was because of his style, the decisions that he made in the playoffs that weren't aggressive enough. So that's where I stand on the AFC field. Let me know again down in the comments. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? How do you feel about my predictions? I'm going to write these down, and I'll make sure that, I evaluate myself. Maybe I do a good job. Maybe I do a bad job. But I'm excited to see some playoff football this week, and I hope you all are too. Once again, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not done so already. But this is Gary with RGR Football. So glad you're here, signing out, and we'll catch you on this bye week. Enjoy the football this week, and I hope you all are staying nice and warm. And if you're like myself, I hope you also got to go sledding. So I took the kids sledding, and I just love sledding so much. So you all take it easy, have fun, have a great rest of your week, and have a good weekend. Let's watch some good playoff football, and we'll see how my predictions do. Y'all take care.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.